I almost lost my marriage when I built my first business. You have to be able to handle that pressure without caving in.
You eat the business, breathe the business, everything business. And I would tell you, just stop talking about the business.
When I first started, I was doing everything myself, taking photos, taking videos of listings for real estate agents. One client turns into 10, 10 turns into 20, 20 into 1,000, it just keeps growing.
The first 2 years was very frustrating. It was very when is this guy going to get his act together?
You don't have time for intimate conversation. You don't even have time for sex. You're like, hold it up. I have these crazy dreams that I'm like, dude, I could never accomplish this on my own. I need God. I don't care if you're in the 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure. This is it right here.
All my emotions are yours. This is what we pray. This is what we pray. 'Cause he's the one that saves. He's the one that reigns. When we call his name, that's when chains start to break.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We are excited to have this conversation. Today is, or this week actually, is one of those weeks where it's just a lot going on. So I think what we're going to talk about right now is just so fitting and it's so perfect because, listen, if you are a person that wants to start a business and you say, wow, I can't wait to start a business so I don't have to work as much. I've actually heard people say that. I can't wait to start having a business so I don't have to work that much. It doesn't really work that way. It's actually the opposite, especially in the beginning. You just put a lot of work. So this week is one of those weeks where I liken it to pressure, right? I think there's ebbs and flows, but there are certain times where it's just the pressure of everything just really, really comes. And I'm not saying it's always like that, but I'm saying that there are a lot of times where it is like that, and you have to be able to handle that pressure without caving in. And so what we're going to talk about today is how not to lose your marriage while building a business. I almost lost my marriage when I built my first business, and we're going to talk about that, a little bit of our story, and kind of what we learned, what we wish we would have done differently, what I wish I would have done differently. And I think we're also going to open up about just practical tips on what to do, because I love that.
Something that we've learned throughout the years is that wisdom is really the ability and the skill on how to put things into action, right? Because we can have a knowledge, right? And we don't know how to put it into practice. It can just get stuck in our heads. And then that's when the frustrations come. So I think throughout the years, we've hit a lot of walls.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of talks where we're like, hey, this is not working out. Go back and see what's working, what's not working. And
so the first business that we started, I started it, and it was Home Sweet Home Productions. And so what we did is, at the time, I had lost my job at where I was working.
We shared the first episode,
I had to provide for us. I had to provide for you. I got this idea to start this business, and I think this is how it happens with a lot of people, especially in the service-based business. I know now there's so many other types of businesses that you can do, but it was a service-based business, taking photos, taking videos of listings for real estate agents. One client turns into 10, 10 turns into 20, 20 into 1,000, it just keeps growing.
Right.
When I first started, I was doing everything myself. But like I said earlier, everything comes with pressure, right? Everything comes in ebbs and flows. And when the wave is strong, the pressure is strong as well.
I feel like the first 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, it was a lot of pressure. I know you were going through it a way, and then I was going through it another way. And it took us time to come finally to the middle, of agreement, and I've been telling you recently, I think you kind of pulled me into your world for a little bit. The time's coming where you're going to come to my world a little bit. But I think that I didn't understand anything about business, zero, so everything that you were doing, it was new, completely new to me. So
everything I was doing in terms of what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a good question. Business, like everything, like I said, I have said before, to me, when you started the business, it was more of like oh, you're just doing like
Like a hobby.
passion, passion project, and to see how, like, the dreamer in you type of thing, it was, and at that time, I didn't know that even God approved, or that God would even put dreams in our hearts. I didn't even know that. I thought like, no, God does, he just wants you to go to a 9 to 5. He's a God that just wants safety and, not for you to take any risks, in faith or be bold and dream. Like that would have never, I would have ever thought about that. So all of the things that you were like saying to me, like aspiring to, dreams. And I'm like, you're crazy. And
Well, because we were seeing the numbers, like I was seeing the numbers. Like I think like, when was it that we hit like our first 6-figure year? Was it like year 2 or what was it, year 1? Like what was it, year 2? We had our first 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point you were like, okay, this isn't just a hobby. Like this is.
well, at that point, and I was like, okay, I got to ask the Lord for more like wisdom and how to pray for you. I remember that's when the Lord started to give me more words for the business, for you. I remember you were like hit certain walls, and, we'll talk about them right now in a little bit. But I remember, well, actually, I'll say it right now.
I don't know. Like what were some walls early on?
That I can remember.
At that, because I think it's a good idea if we split it into stages, love. Like, let's talk about it. So we haven't hit the 8 figures. Where we started to hit 7 figures, but there's different learning. Like this is what I'm saying. You can how not to lose your marriage while building a business. Okay, there's different stages. I think that there are different walls that you hit when you first hit your first 6 figures.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when you hit your 7 figures, there's different
Walls
and obstacles that you hit there. About the point that we're talking about now, about within marriage. And then 8-figure business, I'm actually excited because in the future we're going to speak to some of our friends that are 8-figure business owners, and we'll talk to them about that stage.
Right.
But I'm saying that early on, let's break it down. So the first one, 6 figures, what were some of the walls there?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. I know that because you were doing everything, you were editing, you were taking the pictures, you were doing admin, you were doing billing. Sometimes I would help you with billing, not a lot, or some admin.
Sales.
Yeah,
fulfillment.
Right. But I wasn't as involved, in the beginning because, I had the baby, I had Judah. And then, so I had to take care of that, So you were doing it all alone.
Yeah.
And then Freddie, your brother, started to help you, I think, on the 2nd year.
Thank you, Freddie.
So,
So you're saying that the first wall is just
for me,
having too much.
it was a mindset. Like
For you, the first wall was a mindset.
Yeah, the first wall for me, and obviously you'll talk about yours. Like for me, it was a mindset. For me, it was. I grew up in the church, and it was nobody's fault. Obviously, it was just it was new to me. Like I had seen my parents be business people because, they had their own business.
Yeah, they had their business, yeah.
But it it wasn't
Structure.
it's structured, it wasn't like let's expand, it's not just like something to get by. So that was what I saw. I grew up like that. And my brother was a teacher. My other brother, I forgot what he was doing at the time. So like everything was like, you go to school and you go get a career. You go get a salary and you get something steady and an income.
I get you.
So for me, it was a mindset.
So for you, it was like you weren't taking it seriously. Like
I
it
was
wasn't
not taking it seriously.
like what a waste of time to get a 9 to 5.
100%.
Go get a real job.
Yes, that was my mindset. Yeah, that was my mindset for you. And I was honestly like the first 2 years was very frustrating. It was very like, when is this guy going to get his act together? Right. And for me, like, I guess people have to know this. Like, I don't care about money. Like, I am the last one to be like, I want millions. So, like, I for me, it was like, I don't care. I mean, obviously now God is renewed me in a lot of different areas. But I would tell you, like, Pablo, as long as we have our house, like our little house, I would even tell you a little house, and it's just you and us and the kids, and that's it. That's all that matters. Like, I don't care about anything else. So my mindset was never to grow. Like, my mindset was never like, we're going to own, like, own a 7-figure business, 8-figure, like, never, even a 6-figure, for me was like 100,000.
I remember
that's the most
Yeah.
that, like, for me, that was like, you made it.
That's exactly it. Like, when I was younger, I was like, dude, if I could just make $100,000, like, that is like, and I'll say this, because maybe you're watching and you're like from another state. You're like, what are you talking about, Pablo? $100,000, you could buy a humongous home here. You could do all this. We live in California.
In LA.
In LA specifically. And so,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we around LA,
Yeah.
but guys, it is super expensive here. 100,000 will not get you
No.
much. Yeah, like you can't even afford a nice house to raise. I mean, we have 4 children. You know what I mean? So, okay, let's go to this thing, because let's link it to how not to lose your marriage while building a business. Check this out. Having that mindset, and then me wanting to build and do all this stuff, with her having this mindset of like, oh, this is just a hobby,
And
how it feels for someone.
but it was also a lot of fear. I want to clear that up.
Let me say this. Yeah, let me say this. How it feels for someone like this, it feels unsupported. It feels like you're not taking me seriously. It feels like I feel like
alone.
Yeah, and it feels like, and honestly, this is prime. This is important that I say this. Being in this situation, someone that's driven and someone that's like, no, I'm going to build this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then having someone that's like, no, don't do it. In fact, you're wasting your time. Go to a 9-to-5. In fact, like, because I'm scared and all this stuff, I'll let you talking about that right now. It's very important to acknowledge where you're at, because check this out. Being in this place, you're easy prey for cheating.
Oh, yeah.
Easy prey.
Yeah, because you're like, she doesn't get me.
She doesn't get me.
And then I remember.
And then all of a sudden, here I am having a conversation with some woman that is driven, right? That is an entrepreneur already, and then I'm having this conversation. She's meeting some needs inside of me by affirming me and by saying, yeah, go for it, doing all this stuff. You see? That's how you are susceptible.
Right. And thank God the Lord protected us. Like, without us knowing that he was protecting us, he was protecting us. And
it's crazy, man.
And we had a mama bear. We have a mama bear who, I mean, if I could tell you the stories that, I mean, she totally would call stuff out. And
Not one of them.
Yeah?
Yeah, go for it. I don't even know what you're about to say, but I don't know what I signed up to, but I'm like.
No, well, I mean, again, guys, like, we're talking about building a business and not losing your marriage. So I think these are raw and real things that we have to think about. I mean, you weren't in business yet, but you were around that time that you were going to get fired fired. And I remember she went to lunch with you and pastor, and she said, and she started describing, a woman in the bank, because she didn't even know who this woman was. Talking about, and then when you told me, and I'm like, oh, I know who she's talking about, like, and
one of my coworkers.
Yeah, so she started describing, like, certain things that she was sensing and she was seeing. So her thing was like, you and Gabby better be like good, like, you guys better be strong, because if there's any holes,
but
anywhere,
but that's what it is. It's when there are, and you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna one day talk about the book. What is it? His Needs, Her Needs. Because I think it's very important.
That's such a good book.
Yeah. Because when one person's needs are not being met, then you are easy target for adultery. You're easy target to let somebody else fill those needs that should be filled by your spouse.
And sometimes you don't even know what your needs are.
Right.
So, like, that's why that book
You're just like, wow, this conversation is so good.
And that's why that book is so good, because it even helps you understand yourself. Like, oh yeah, like, I do have that need, and then you can communicate it even better to your spouse. But in that first 2 years, for me, it was a lot of overcoming fears, overcoming fear, overcoming that mindset of like, God doesn't want to bless me that much. You know, like if God blesses me that much, like that means I'm going to go astray and I'm going to leave God. You know, I'm going to go after, you know, money, and I'm going to leave him. And that was a fear that I had about, you know, for you. Like he's going to just get lost in his business. He's going to get lost in greed and, you know, all these things. Obviously, well, you know, those are things that did, you know, were in our hearts, and God had to purify us more about like from that. But like in me, it was a lot of like, you know, I was pulling you.
Well, I think because look, these
Which
are my
was
thoughts.
good,
Yeah, in a way, but in a way, but
then-
in a way. But let me say this, because I noticed that there are a lot of believers, a lot of Christian people. I think that they hide behind that. You know, I think they don't take a risk because they're like, no, if I take a risk, if I do this, if I do that, then it's hard for a rich person to, you know, to enter the kingdom. So it's really hard for a rich person to serve the Lord and to seek God, right? And so people get stuck behind that, and I think what happens is that they retreat to like this cave, and they're like, no, you know what? I'm just not going to mess with that. And I'm not saying everybody should go out and
No.
seek to build an 8-figure business. Like, I'm not saying that. It's not for everyone.
We're talking to specific marriages that are in business, who are entrepreneurs.
Right,
Who are
entrepreneurs.
building, you know, business while being married. Like
Right.
this is for like
Yeah.
that specific
But I'm
audience.
saying
Yeah.
we can't go in a cave and hide and be like, no, we're never gonna accomplish anything. No, we're not gonna take this territory. We're not gonna take
And I
this land.
think-
I think everything takes risk.
Yeah, and I think honestly for me, when things started to change is when I started to present a lot of this to the Lord. You know, when I started to ask him, I started to ask him, Lord, is this you? You know, and I remember that's when my journey, you know, I had explained my journey of faith began. You know, like, Lord, is this you? Like, talk to me, you know, like show me. And I remember he did. He started showing me in the word. He started showing me, like, you know, he started speaking to me like, Gabby, I have so many things. People started to come to us, you know, different people giving us words. Like, you know, I remember one specific sister, you know, from our community came, and she's like, you know, I had a dream, and I saw this huge, like, basket of just a lot of fruit. It was so like in abundance, and it was in your house, and it was right in the middle of your table, but it was humongous, you know. And I took it like God was telling me, like, this is me. Like, I'm blessing you guys in the abundance that you're seeing. It's me, you know. And so there had to be like a lot of also, you know, he had to break a lot of things in us, like being stingy. You know, we were people that didn't give. You know, we were not givers whatsoever. And I'm not just talking about financially. I'm talking about like time. You know, not caring what anybody else was going through. If like someone was sick, we wouldn't even, you know, care or ask. So it was a lot of different
Mindset shifts.
in me those 3-4 years, the
Yeah.
first 3-4 years.
And you know what I think it's linked to, baby? I think a lot of that is linked to lack,
Yeah.
and I think it's linked to poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's linked to poverty, because when you have this poverty mindset,
You don't even
you
try.
don't try. You know what I mean? You don't seek to. And look, man, my walk of faith, dude. Like, dude, I just can't imagine my walk of faith being as strong if I didn't have these, like, if I didn't. It's like I have these crazy dreams that I'm like, dude, I could never accomplish this on my own. Like, I need God. You know, for a lot of things that we talk about, like, well, that now I talk to you about. You know, you're like, we're both together. Like, how is this gonna happen? How are we gonna do this? We're like, we don't know, but it's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exhilarating. It just gives me life, and it just
Yeah.
every day is like,
Like, what are you going to do today, God?
what's gonna happen today? Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's pursuit of faith. One thing that we gotta talk about is the importance of communication in those times.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't know what we're feeling, or we don't know what we're going through, so it's hard to communicate. It's hard to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to say, in retrospect, it would have been good for me to say, hey, love, I feel like you're not taking me seriously, and I would like for you to support me and for you to stand behind me, and to say even something as simple as, I know you can do it. I trust you. You know, I know you. I know that. You know, just words that would affirm me.
Yeah.
At that time.
At that time, we were still very, not newlyweds, but you know, we were a young couple, like 2-3 years of,
Yeah.
you know, or 4 years, sorry, of being married. I was still going through a lot of healing, but at the same time, because everything was so new, it was like in the beginning it was confusing. You know, it was like, wait, you know, I do see God is giving us the grace. I do see God is blessing the business. Like, I do see the Lord opening doors, like, just left and right, you know? So that was like, it was like a battle, you know, in my mind of like, wait, God, like, because I was also, it's barely starting my faith, you know, my journey with the Lord, of even hearing his voice. Like, I remember the first time I actually felt like I heard God, not like an audible voice, like Gabby, not like that, but where I had a conviction that it was him talking. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can hear you, God. Like, I know it's you. So I didn't want to lose that, you know? So I was like protecting that at that time. So I just had to learn to hear God in that journey. So it wasn't that I wasn't trusting you, but it was like I was starting my own journey too, and hearing God and knowing how, like, oh, okay, that's how God sounds. Like, okay, I heard him that first time. Okay, the second time it sounds. So I was like tuning my ears, and I was having different breakthroughs, like you're saying, of poverty mindset, of lack, of, you know, I remember at that time I was having crazy like encounters with the Lord, with the word. You know, I was in the word of God, and he would just like open my mind to like, oh my God, I have been used to this poverty, you know. So I think we were both, without knowing, we were walking together
On this journey, but like,
in our own
Yeah.
paths, because
Yeah.
then at some point we like merged, you
That's
know.
good.
So it was like the Lord was working inside of us individually, because we're so different. Like, you're completely different than I am, you know.
big time.
I'm obviously, you're like the go-getter, you're the
Yeah.
dreamer,
Yeah.
you know, you're like, you know, you're very like pioneer, like, I'm gonna go do this, and you know, no one's doing it, who cares, like, I'm still gonna do it, you know, which is amazing. But to someone who is like me, you know, I'm more reserved, I'm more conservative, I'm more like, hold on, you know, let's hear what, you know, not saying that you don't hear God, because you do, but we do it differently.
You just want like 20 confirmations, and that's
Probably.
cool. You know? I gotta turn the
Probably.
fleece, and then the next day I would turn the fleece, and it's, you know, so
Yeah. Yeah,
I love
and
it. I love it.
there's
It's different.
wisdom in both.
yeah, there's wisdom in both. So okay, so what I'm saying is that, and it's a good transition, because you're talking about you're totally different than I am. Well,
Totally.
one of the things that we're also different in is how we have our needs met. So we refer to the book, which is His, Her Needs, by the way, really great book. You should buy it, and you should read it with your spouse. You're different in that you feel fulfilled, like your love tank gets filled when I spend quality time with you. When we go out, when we have another one is intimate conversation. Quality time and intimate conversation. If I just give you that, you are a happy camper. Okay? And yeah, so there are different needs. For men, one of the top needs is sexual fulfillment? Sexual fulfillment, right? We could have all the talks in the world, but if we're not having good sex, those talks to me don't really mean too much. You know what I mean? So, but it's vice versa. So, in this time where we're building this business, and this is what we're doing. When I say ebbs and flows, so much work comes to you, and you don't have time for intimate conversation. You don't have time for quality time. You don't even have time for sex. It's so,
Because you're so tired.
because you're so tired. You're like, oh man, like what, like it's just crazy, you know. But nonetheless, you still have those needs.
Right.
It's like when you're hungry,
Right.
right? You could work all day, but you're still hungry,
Right.
right? So there's a hunger that you had
Yeah.
of, I gotta have these conversations. I gotta be with you.
And I think
That weren't being met at that time.
no, because you again, because you were doing everything.
Well, I want to get to that. That's the transition that I'm using. And I don't want to get to the solution, but I want to present the problem first. And the problem is this, guys, is when you're like go, 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 when you're on go mode, it's very easy to not fulfill each other's needs, right? So if I know that your need is that quality time and intimate conversation, and I'm not making time, because that takes time, dude. Like, you can't rush through intimate conversation. If I'm like, hey, Gabby, I got 15 minutes, let's make this happen, let's do this.
Point.
And vice versa, like, hey, I got 5 minutes, let's go have sex. Like, that's probably, I'm not going to enjoy that much. You know what I mean? I don't know about other dudes out there listening, but I like quality stuff. You know what I mean? And that takes time. You know what I mean? So you're like holding on to the chair. I love it. Okay. So here you are trying to build your business, but at the same time, it's like your business. It's like, okay, think about gas tanks. Your business gas tank is like, that thing is a monster. So it's like this big old truck that just needs a bunch of fuel. And every little rev is like taking like $50, so it's taking so much time and so much energy.
Yeah.
And here you are, your gas tank is being depleted. Like, think about it. There were some weeks, maybe even months, where we didn't have intimate conversation, where we didn't have quality time. Do you see what I mean? So how not to lose? This is how you're going to lose your marriage.
Right.
This is exactly the recipe for losing your marriage and building a business. I don't know how much to stress that. This is it, dude. Like, this is it. I don't care if you're in the 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure. This is it right here.
Because you have to communicate expectations. So I think that is something that helped us too. When, again, I take it back, to that moment where I felt like we were, not on the same page. Again, you were going through your journey. I was going through my journey with the Lord. For me, what it looked from like on my side, it was that you were just all about the business. You were eat the business, breathe the business, everything business. So I would even get annoyed of you because, we would have talks and it was about the business. And I would tell you, like, just stop talking about the business. Like, can we talk about us? Can we talk about the kids? Can we talk about, like what we're going to do and things like that. So you were consumed by it at some point, and it was annoying. I mean, I was remembering the other day with, you were talking to Shirley, and, we were saying how, like, we used to pay our shooters, like, at the parking lot, like, of church. Because they were, contractors, and one of them came to our church. Yeah. So, like, or two of them, actually.
Here, bro, how much do I owe you?
So, literally, you take out the checkbook, and you, oh my God.
Okay. Because you brought up some really good stuff right there. Because,
so, the expectation that I had, I didn't have the verbiage or the language and how to communicate it to you, which was, I would do it like in a nagging way.
Okay. So go back in time, 10 years, and young Gabby is right there. You're still young. You're still very young. But even younger Gabby, you're having a conversation with her, and she's in this place. How would you advise her to talk to me?
Well, now that I know everything, like now that I know who you are. Yeah. And I think at the beginning you were still discovering who you were.
100%.
So it wasn't like you had the language or the capacity and skill.
No, that's why I say.
To be like, Gabby, like, I'm a dreamer. Like, did you know this about me? Like, like we were both discovering that about you, and you about me. So that's why it was hard for me to have a skill. Now that I know that you're a go-getter, that you're like, now I admire that about you. That's like one of like the most, like, I can just sit sometimes and just like look at you and just admire you. And I'm just like, honestly, I know I'm about to cry, but like, I just look at you now and I'm like, wow, like everything that he's going to accomplish. If I was I was talking to him, if I go back and talk to the young Gabby, I would be like, trust in the Lord. Be patient. Like, God is doing a deep work in him, like Ephesians says. And God is, doing what he needs to do in his character, in his mind. He's going to do some inner healing, some deep stuff. And you got to be ready, because when it comes out, like, you got to be there to support him. And just wait, just wait on the Lord, and you're going to see how everything unfolds.
How would you tell her to communicate her needs to him?
I would first say, pray. First, I would say, go calm down. Calm yourself. Because I remember that Gabby, I was very afraid. I was very fearful. A huge, fear that I had, and it kept playing in my mind, was, when is the goodness of God going to end? I was always looking to see, okay, let's see when one of us will fail. Let's see when all of this is going to stop. I was constantly replaying it in my mind,
Just waiting for that day.
just waiting, this is too good to be true.
Yeah.
Because I had a rough childhood, so I was never picked. I was, I was always quiet. I was always shy. There was never favor. I felt there was never favor. I'm sure there was favor, a lot of favor in my life, but for me, it was no, that friend that I had, she's the one that should be in front, being the leader or whatever, or the pastor or what, this or that. But I never saw myself having that much favor. So, I was always when is this going to end? When is this, this is too good to be true. We were having these crazy connections, God is opening doors, our business is being blessed, and until one day I took it to the Lord, and I was I'm sick and tired of feeling like this, always scared of okay, today's, I'm going to wake up one day and it's going to be oh, just kidding. This was not for you. It was for the other person, and I remember just crying out to the Lord, and the Lord took me to Psalms 89, where it says that he doesn't hold anything back from those who love him and those who fear him. And he has storehouses. So God was I'm a God of abundance. I own this, the hills and the trees on the hills and the animals on the hills. This is I'm the owner of the silver and the gold. I felt it lifted off of me because I decided to believe in the word. So that's when I started to trust. Okay, God, you're guiding Pablo, in his own, I don't understand sometimes, you're leading him and you're faithful. And if you're not leading him, well, guess he's going to be alerting. He's going to alert me, and he's going to alert you, because that's how we are. When the Lord puts a warning in me, or I'm something seems off, you've even come to respect that and honor that.
I guess, yeah. Let me go into that a little bit.
So, sorry.
Yeah,
so to wrap it up,
yeah, sure.
That's what I would tell the young Gabby. Believe and trust in the Lord, pray, go to the word, get a promise, and
then what about practical?
what I did with you was I remember for me, I had to stay quiet a lot of times. Quiet in the sense where not speak bunch of negative words over you.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're not going to make it, when I would get fear attacks like that, most of the time I would stay quiet.
Oh, I see.
I wouldn't really tell you. I would stay quiet. I'm I'm just not going to tell them how I feel. You're not going to make it. We're not going to make it.
Yeah.
I never.
And that's the worst, because dude, you're supposed to be my biggest cheerleader,
Yeah.
So, you're and that's good that you're saying pray about it. But I was specifically asking you, love, about how would you express your needs to me? Dude, you're spending so much time on the business.
Well, that's how I would do it. I would just tell you that. I would tell you hey, I think you need to have some self-control. You need to put some boundaries.
Yeah.
And one thing we talked about, and even our mama there, our mentor, she stepped in, I remember, and said, Pablo, why can't you just work 9 to 6?
Well, okay, so hang on. So, because in order for us to get there, this was, if I was going to lose my marriage, it was going to be at this time.
Because you didn't understand.
Well,
because there was a lot of times that I would try to tell you.
Yeah.
But because you felt like I wasn't supporting you.
I would just block everything.
Yeah, you would
I'd be man, you don't care about me anyway.
Exactly. So you would just be you just don't care. You don't want to you don't want to see me, like, you don't want to build with me. I remember you would say that. So I remember, like, again, because we were both barely like starting to get to know what was happening, like, you know, all these things, like, you were feeling attacked, you were feeling alone, you were feeling, but I was feeling as like, no, like, I'm gonna lose you, like, if I don't have you.
But that's what I'm saying. That I think the climax was, yeah, it was, if we don't spend time together, if we don't change this, if you don't like live, eat, breathe, and do everything, business, you're gonna lose me.
Yeah.
And I had to come to that realization of like, oh,
I guess
she's serious.
talk about like what was happening in your mind. Why was
So that's why I wanted to get to.
Oh, okay.
Like I said all this to say the following.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm building. I kind of know what I'm doing here.
I know,
Yeah.
you're a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller. Yeah, I got to build
Sometimes
it up.
I just want you to get to the
No, I
point.
got to build it up. Because why present the solution if you don't know the problem?
Right.
You know, so it's a good salesman. So, okay. So here we are. And because the solution is this. And it was a practical solution. Okay. So if I could have a conversation with that guy, I would say, number one, bro, you need a mentor. You don't know what you're doing, bro. Like, you've never had, like, you're coming over here from poverty to like starting to make six figures, multiple six figures. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You need help in a lot of different areas. So I would tell this young guy, bro, go get some help. Find someone that's being successful, someone that is already doing what you want to be doing in 5 years, and go talk to them and just say, please help me.
Yeah.
You know, look for a coaching program. For real, that's a big one. Look for a coaching program. Sign up to it. You're going to spend money. Yes, you are. Of course you are. But go spend it because they're going to save you
Yeah.
a lot of different things. So the practical advice is this. It's because I was used to doing everything by myself. And this, again, another poverty/orphan mindset. Okay? If something has to be done, I got to do everything myself. I gotta look for the client myself. I gotta do the job myself. I gotta collect the money myself. Remember, there were days where we would just drive to different people to pick up checks.
That's just so annoying.
What an ineffective, dumb system, bro. You know,
Sometimes
Square
you
exists.
wouldn't even like pick up because we would get busy and the check sometimes would stay there for like weeks.
I'm pretty sure people didn't even pay me because I forgot. I was collecting like anyways. So just
Talk about cash flow.
yeah, like so super inefficient because I was used to doing everything myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so the advice is learn to delegate. The advice is don't be a cheapo. Hire someone if you have to. Look, if you're at a point where you're doing too much and you're making some money, bro, you got to reinvest in your business. You won't be able to grow if you don't reinvest. Okay, so it's not just hire people, because I always say the same thing. I say, all right, you need to hire someone. Don't just say, okay, I'm going to hire someone. Let me go put a job post. No, first, you got to build your SOPs, standard operating procedures. Okay, if I'm building this candle, all right, I'm going to write down exactly how I want to build. I want to write down my
You want it to
expectations,
look,
how I want it to
smell.
look, smell, I like the process of doing it, the process of handing it to the client, the process of what it looks like to collect from the client, right? So I'm doing all of these SOPs, and then based off of that, I'm creating jobs. If you're in this situation, you're doing the job of like 4 people. You're doing the job of 3 people. That's why you feel so much pressure.
Well, when you first start, yes, you're doing the job of like.
Exactly. And I know sometimes you got to make sacrifices, but you have to get to a point where instead of doing the job of 4 people, hire 1 person, and then now you're doing the job of 3 people. All right, but it's progress, it's something. But build systems is what I'm saying. You got to start building systems. Go from being a mom and pop to actually having some systems and actually building a business. Don't just work in your business, work on your business. Actually build the business. Because you're like, well, Pablo, what does all this boring business talk have to do with how not to lose your marriage while building a business? Everything. If you build systems, if you build people, if you get organized, you're gonna have more time.
Yeah.
And what you do with that time is you invest it wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you were doing everything, you were up till like 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. That was a lot, and then, me waking up and tossing around and checking if you were, in bed, and then you're not in bed. It's just like, like you're not married. So
No, it's not good.
So it felt like, if it was cold, if it was distant, so.
So within that, you have to also set boundaries. And I think this is very, very important, right? Trust me, if you don't want to lose your marriage, you're going to have to put boundaries around that business.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I love the way one of my mentors says it. He's like, the first business that we build, what we're essentially building is a prison.
Yeah.
We're building a jail. Yeah. And sometimes it's like a nice, comfortable jail because you're like, wow, like, man, I was living in poverty. I love this jail. I have all these extra things.
Right.
But it's a prison because you can't leave it. Because it tells you what to do. It tells you what time to wake up. It tells you what time you got to finish work. It tells you, and if you don't do this, see,
you're scared too.
but
You're
that's a
also
prison.
Fearful.
A prison is
You're bound.
you're bound. You see, so it makes so much sense. Why? Because we lack the wisdom on how to build systems, on how to build boundaries.
One time, I remember this because I think he was like your biggest client at the time. And he was like, I want you to work on Sundays. And I forgot what other time.
Yeah.
And I remember you were freaking out. You were freaking out like, if I don't do this, like, he's going to stop coming with us. And he's the one giving us the most jobs and da-da-da. And because I was building my faith and my journey with the Lord, Pablo, like, get a hold of yourself.
Yeah.
I was like, we don't bow down to any customers. So no people. I'm like, you think he provides for us? Like, no. Who provides for us?
God.
And you're like, God. I'm like, that's right.
That's right.
I was like, God, like God provides for us.
Yeah.
And we are not going to be, fearful. Like, these are our values. These are our boundaries. Our boundaries is that we don't, obviously this doesn't have to be for everybody.
So let me explain that.
We don't go, we don't work on Sundays.
I worked all of this, like, I basically was in the prison and the prison told me what to do. Okay. So the prison, and if you're my client and you've been my client, like, I'm not calling you.
I'm not the prison.
Well, you kind of were like, if I let you be,
right.
That's the truth.
Oh, well.
But it's the same thing with you, with your clients.
Yeah.
If you let your clients dictate what you're going to do, when you're going to work with, dude, it's a prison. What they are, they're jailers. You're like my jailer. You're like the
making sure you're in the prison.
Yeah, you're like the prison ward. No, you got to work at this time. You got to answer the phone at this time. You got to do all this.
Well, before you would answer the phone at like 10.
Whenever.
11. Clients would call you at 10, 11. Where are my pictures?
Yeah.
Can you come? Da-da-da. And until when you put a hard stop to that, dude, people's respected you.
Yeah.
And
people
they
respect
stopped,
you.
and people stopped.
And some people aren't going to work with
it.
you because they're like, I'm going to be the jailer or else I can't work with you. Bro, go work with go work with somebody else, bro.
Right.
Like I cannot.
Someone that doesn't value their, have values, or they're single, or whatever,
No, but baby, like, the thing is my list of priorities.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Someone who
is
has
my family,
right.
is you. Now, listen, I'm still going to provide amazing experience, products, all this stuff to our clients for sure. I'm not saying like, oh, forget you're like in last place.
No.
But I'm saying within boundaries. And you know what, baby? Like, I'm feeling like goosebumps because check this out. I think God blesses that.
Oh, of course.
I think God blesses that. I think some people, like, they like take pride in, I'm going to answer the phone whenever, Pablo doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to answer the phone at 11.
Well,
I'm going to answer the phone whenever I want.
You know why God blesses that? Because God is a God of order.
Yes.
And because he is a God of order, the order, the priorities are obviously God. He's the center, he's the foundation, and then it's family. After him, it's your spouse. Like, that's the closest thing to God even, like that relationship with God, it's so much alike the spouse, you're a husband and a wife. So God is going to bless that. Of course he is, he blesses marriage. So when we are not taking care of that, how are we attracting any blessing? How are we attracting, his protection, all of that, we're not attracting his favor.
Because that is a true indicator of you operating in your own strength. Yeah. Look what the Bible says in Job 38. Okay. So he's talking about order. He's talking about limits and boundaries, how everything that God created has limits and boundaries. Yes. Look, it says, I'll start from verse 8, Job 38:8. Who shut up the sea behind the doors when it burst forth from the womb, when I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness? When I fixed limits for it, okay? Limits for what? For the sea, and set doors and bars in place. When I said, this far you may come and no further. Here is where your proud waves halt. All right? He's talking about the sea, right? Sea is crazy, like, man, like
you gotta respect the sea.
You gotta respect the sea, but in some ways you could say it's out of control. But no, it's not. God set limits.
Yeah.
See, God, as majestic as the sea is, as awesome and powerful and mighty with waves and all this stuff, God put limits. And it said, yes, you're mighty. Yes, you're strong. Yes. I created you with like all this wonder, but you're not going to cross this line.
Yeah. Of course, God's going to bless that, because we're even like being like him. Yeah. We're setting boundaries.
We're creating like him.
Exactly.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
Even
wow, that's awesome.
And I remember when we said, okay, no Sundays. We're not going to, work Sundays. And then you started, okay, you know what? No calls after 6. Okay, you know what? I'm not working after, like, I'm putting everything down and focusing on the kids. Like, we started getting so much closer.
Big time.
Because we had the talks, we had the date nights, we started to have getaways, we started to do so much more. And the enemy comes and lies to you as an entrepreneur. Like, if you don't focus on your business 24/7 and or on a Sunday or whatever day you go to church or whatever, like, he lies to you saying you're going to lose a client. You're going to lose a client. Well, what if those clients, some of them are not even meant for you to have? Till this day, it happens to us. We're like, there's some certain clients that we're like, oh my gosh, like, we're going to lose them. And they have some crazy expectations. You're like, that's out of my boundaries even sometimes. And, I know for you, it's so like, it's hard for you. Like,
well, because I like to please.
Yeah. So it's hard for you, and it's something that you've had to work through
I've
the
had
years.
To work on.
Because before you would be very scared of losing, oh, but they want me to do this and that and it's like, well, Paul, that's impossible. Like, that doesn't align with us,
So God here said, the sea, which I created, I'm going to set boundaries and I'm going to set limits. We get to create these businesses that bring solutions to this world. Right. And it's such a godly thing to do, man. Like, it's so amazing. It's so awesome. There's a scripture, I think it's in the Old Testament. So it says, but remember, ooh, this is so good. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Okay? Man, this is amazing. Okay. And so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors as it is today. Okay. So it's saying God has given you this amazing mind, and you think these dreams, like, man, these dreams come from God. And I think he's so happy when I believe him, when he's like, oh, he actually took me up on that. Like, he actually, this is going to be a crazy adventure. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to, walk with him on this. Okay. So he gives us these dreams. He gives us all of these things. And we are the stewards of it. So we get to manage it. So we get to build these businesses and these empires. But just as God created the sea and set boundaries on it, as majestic as it is, we need to build this in the same fashion. These businesses, we need to say, and this is what it looks like. It's nothing super complicated. Check this. This is how it looks like in my life. Okay? If I'm going to build businesses, I'm going to continue to, right? They have to fall within these boundaries. And what are my boundaries? I say I'm going to work from 9 to 6. Okay? Sometimes 9 to 5. Okay? There may be rare days where I might go to 7, I might go to 8, but rare days.
Really rare.
Rare days. Okay? But it's going to be from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. Okay, this is my version of like this is where you stop. This is my version of that. Okay, these are my boundaries. 9 to 6. On Saturdays, I'm not going to work. Why? Because I got to spend time with my family. On Sundays, I'm not going to work because we go to church and, we still spend time as a family. We serve the Lord. We do all these things. And so this is what it looks like. It's practical.
And these are our values, and everyone's values obviously are different. We're involved in different things, so everyone is going to be different. If you're watching,
100%. But what I'm saying is that dictates if I presented with this business idea, or if I'm presented with this, and if it falls within these boundaries, for sure. If it doesn't, it's an easy no.
That's why it's so important, though, to talk about these boundaries. Like, what are those boundaries? For us, it was like Sundays are just not. They just can't. Why? Because if you're going to work, you're going to be rushed. We play in the worship team, so we have to be there early. So it's it's going to be a lot of rushing. We have to get the kids ready. So there's so much going on. So for us, it just doesn't make sense, and we don't want to give anything to the Lord that's going to be so rushed. And another thing for us, a big value that we have and boundaries help is rest. We value rest. Like that is, he is a Lord of the Sabbath. So he blesses that. He rested, on the seventh day. So he blesses rest. So when you have a time to rest with your spouse and your children, like, man, like you need that reset every week. You need that reset to be like, you know what? Like for me, this week was a heavy week. I had a couple staging jobs, so it was heavy, and I had to drop stuff and be like, I want to be with my kids, I want to go be with, my husband. Like I have to stop it, like hard stops, oh my gosh. And my mind wanted to be like, but tomorrow, like I have all this stuff to do, but I had to be like, nope, like it's a hard stop,
But look, here's the wisdom. All right. This week was very busy, right? But check it out. Last week, where were we? We were on a getaway. We were up in Northern California, beautiful Carmel by the sea. We were, we love doing this, guys. Like we love just driving. I think we love to drive because we get to talk. We get to just connect.
A lot.
Yeah, we got to talk a lot. And Northern California is just beautiful because it's so green. It's like, man, you might as well be in Europe. It's really beautiful. Amazing food. Oh, delicious. If you guys want to know some fresh restaurants, we give you some suggestions. Very beautiful bed and breakfast spots. Amazing, unique hotels. Really, really nice. We prioritize rest.
That's
because sometimes it's also even resting from the children. It's resting from
everything,
from a lot of different things. But then you also rest as a family with your children.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you rest by yourself. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, and I think it's just all of these things are talking about your values, talking about your boundaries. Talking about do we value as a church, as a family, to go to church? Do we, or are you wishy-washy with that? Or is it inconsistent? What do you want to teach your kids? What do you want to impart to your children? Because when they see mom and dad be like, nope, this is what we're doing and we don't compromise, like they're going to learn that.
You're not just telling them, they're watching you.
Exactly. You're showing them this is what it looks like to walk out conviction.
100%.
This is what it looks like, what we believe in. And, and hopefully, they take similar values to their children, So I think, in the beginning, you're still figuring it out. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't have a language to be like, Pablo, we need to value rest, like we need to, I didn't have that. But as we grew with the Lord, as we got mentors,
as we grew in maturity,
exactly, as we heard different people, like we started taking, pieces. We're like, wait a minute, like, oh, that's for me. Like, yes, I want to live like this. Like, yeah, this feels like, maybe so-and-so is not doing it, but this is how it's going to look for us.
But it's so
you never compare yourself to other people.
I love what we're doing, what you brought up with like our kids and how we're doing it in terms of like how they get to see us. Like, it's so cool. Like my sons and my daughter, they get to watch me work hard during the week, Monday through Friday. They know daddy's at work, 9 to 6, right? And they get to see me come home. you know, and they get to see me enjoy them and unwind and play little, you know, board games and, you know, play little, you know,
board games.
play a bunch of games with them. Get on the bikes. Oh, that's super fun. Get on the bikes and like go out. But they get to see me rest on the weekends. They get to see me take you out. But like I said, they get to
them out. Now we're having dates.
Oh, date nights and all that.
With them.
Exactly. They get to see us serve at church. You know what I mean? Like, wow, look how busy daddy is, and like he's still doing all these things.
Yeah, and like your reward is as a parent, like having these conversations with them. Like today was my date with Hannah, my turn to take her out alone. And you know, we went to Yogurland and we were just talking, and then she was like, Christmas is the best day. Oh, because they were playing Christmas song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was completely weird.
We're in March, so
We're in, almost
that's cool.
March.
I don't mind it.
And she was like, "Why are they playing Christmas music?" And I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "I didn't even notice." But yeah, why? But she's like, "Christmas is like the best day." And I'm like, "It is. Why?" And I'm like, "What about your birthday? You don't think your birthday's the best day?" She goes, "No." She goes, "It's Jesus' birthday on Christmas. So it's the best day because it's not about the presents. It's about the presence of God." I kid you not. I have a video. Like yes, like word for word what I just told you. She said it. She's like, because it's not about the presents. It's about the presence of God.
Oh, I never got that, bro.
You're right, Hannah. You're totally right. So she's like, so it's not my birthday. She's like, it's not my favorite day. It's not my birthday. It's Jesus' birthday. So
what I'm saying is that like this is what it is, guys. Like your kids get to see you grow up healthy, right? They don't get to see a disconnected father. All they're consumed about is business. You know what's the worst, dude? Going to what is it? Funerals? Because I've been to a few. Being in these funerals, one of the things that I see that some people say for dads that were like that, like disconnected and just focused on work, you can tell that that's what they did by what their kids have to say about them. And no one's ever going to trash talk, you know, anybody, especially like on a funeral.
Yeah.
But it sucks to be like, yeah, my dad just focused on work. Yeah, my mom and my dad, all they did was build their business.
Yeah, or sometimes you don't even have to go to funerals. I think, you know, we've heard a lot of, you know, young people that we worked with, people just in general, you know, that we've sat down with and say like, yeah, my dad was just disconnected. They would come home, you know, and go into the room, shower, eat, and then go to bed, you know, and the excuse was, well, he's tired, you know, he worked, you know, he's tired. So, and this doesn't have to be entrepreneurs either. It's just anyone who's worked.
Anyone who's built.
I don't think that, you know, for a long time, like, yeah, of course we were tired. But one thing that, you know, we've talked to each other about is like, dude, we need to make time. You know, we're the ones that, you know, when we obviously don't have anything going on in the evenings, like we're the ones that tuck them in. You know, we're the ones that pray for them. You know, I'm the one that showers them. I check their homework. I do their homework with them. Like, make sure, you know, just, you know, everything. Like, how was school today? You know, checking in on them. If I didn't get to, because I had to do something in the evening, well, in the morning we talk about it. You know, so how was your day? And we both make sure that our children, you know that we're here for them.
For sure.
So, you know, to wrap this up, I think there's so much that we can talk about.
But I love this conversation, baby, and it feels so good.
Alone.
It feels so good, and I think, you know, it's just cool having this conversation. Like I don't know how you guys feel about it, but like this feels good. It's a good conversation to have because, look, this is like maybe it took us 10, 11 years to get here. You know,
and it keeps
11 years. But a lot of like rough moments.
Well, that's why I said it takes time. But you have to be intentional. And I think that's, you know, like what you were saying earlier, like if you're not getting coaching, if you're not, you know, maybe your church has good classes, you know, to take about emotional health, character development stuff. You know, if your church offers that, dude, jump on that, you know, and if you're local in LA, you know, come to our church. Like, we have that almost like a lot, you know. The reason why we've developed a lot, it's because of that, because we've been in a community that is not afraid to talk about stuff like that, So I think that, it's so important to connect. It's so important to connect with the community that's just going to be there teaching you some stuff where you can ask questions, be like, hey, I'm going through some stuff with my spouse or my kids, or, we didn't just wake up and, we know it all. Like, it's been a lot of work.
And it's a journey.
It's been a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a journey. So, yeah, I think it's a good place to park it and just look. I think this is a lot of stuff to think about. I think it's a lot of stuff to talk about. I think if we're going to do a challenge from this conversation, I would say
talk to your spouse.
But before that, I would say, like you said, pray.
Yes.
Because maybe there's a lot of like issues that like maybe in hearing us speak, you probably got mad at some parts, You're like, that's what I've been trying to tell my husband.
Yeah.
And your husband's like, that's what I've been trying to tell my wife. But so maybe you're upset, maybe you're like a little frustrated, you don't know what to do. But listen, I think Gabby's advice was said earlier, I think so good. I think pray. Pray. When you pray, you get clarity, you just let go of all these like frustrations. That's number one. I would say pray about a lot of these things. And then number two, have conversations.
Just be real, tell each other how you feel.
Yeah.
And, maybe it might not take one conversation, it might take a few, it might take a few years. I mean, I know in my case, it took a few years.
Well, it's cycles, baby. Like, because I feel like we're repeating different cycles again in terms of like building business. Because, okay, guys, you see all this fancy furniture around here? Like this is all Gabby's. So Gabby's a stager. So what Gabby does is she goes to like houses and makes them look really nice so that people can sell them, so that the realtors can sell them. So right now we're like in the building phase. How long have you been in business for now?
2 years.
2 years. So all of her profit just goes back into all this fancy stuff that you see around here.
Yeah.
This looks really nice.
Yeah.
But this is what she does. And so in this season of in this phase of this business for you, it's a lot of building. It's a lot of like,
building.
it's a lot of pressure because you don't have the teams. Now you're starting to have a lot of teams, a lot of support in terms of the different departments.
Yes.
Right. But we're like building them. We're in the building phase. So see, that's what I'm saying. We go through cycles, of these different things. Now, when you go through the cycle a second, a third time, a fourth time, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because your mindset is different. Your expectations are different.
I have your support, because you have gone through it.
Yeah.
And then when I want to give up and just be like, I don't care, you're right there. You're like, don't give up. It gets better, So I think that, it just helps out to have each other's back
For sure.
and to be on the same page.
All right, guys, we're gonna stop it right there.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next.